They are now. Welcome back to the workshop. So today's an exciting day. We have had an intercontinental delivery. So if anybody follows Cole's channel, Classic Mini DIY, you'll know that he sent me over some Cooper S cylinder heads. If you haven't, we'll put a link to the video up here in the corner, and you can go and have a look at that video of Cole stripping these cylinders and send them on to us. Cole contacted me a couple of weeks ago now and asked me was I interested in collaborating with him on a Cooper S engine build he's doing. So a local guy to him contacted him and said, look, I have this Cooper S engine and the story is fantastic. I might get this wrong. It's either the person's mother or grandmother, I actually think it's his grandmother, who used to race or rally this Cooper S, and it's been in the family pretty much all of their lives. So it's really great to get an opportunity to get involved in this, and when he offered, I jumped at the chance. As you know, I'm a bit of a lover of anything Cooper S. They're getting rarer and rarer these days, and in the mini world, to have an opportunity to work on something like that is just fantastic. So I'm delighted. As you already know, if you're a follower of my channel, we have another Cooper S engine build that's ongoing. On that, I just found out, well actually, not just found out, I've had the engine block back since it has been here, and it has been dry built, and we checked the deck heights. Now, I'm sorry I didn't bring that to you on video, but I've been dragging my heels. Well, I haven't actually been dragging my heels on it, but we've been really struggling to get liners for the engine block that would work and get them in. We got that done, and I really wanted just to get this engine up and running for the customer, well, get the build up and rolling for the customer. So I quickly did the dry build on the engine, and it went back to get the top of the block skimmed. So in the next couple of weeks, that S engine build is going to get started here in the workshop, because we now are starting to get bits in and we can start building that. So if you were following that build before, you're going to see some regular updates on that over the next few weeks as we get that engine knocked out. Cole, as I said, asked me would I have a go at these, so very excited. However, a little bit unnervingly, I'm holding here in my hand a couple of flattened valve collets that fell out of the box when the delivery man left it at my outside my garage door. And I'm not surprised, because this genuinely is exactly how the box has arrived to me, which is worrying to say the absolute least. I don't know what it is about shipping companies nowadays, but they seem to think that it's a good idea to play football with your parcels before they give them to you. You know, rare Cooper S cylinder heads in here that are pretty much irreplaceable, and you know, this is how they arrive to it. No fault of Cole's, very well packaged, lots of packing tape, and you know, good strong box, but yeah, it's just how they treat them. So anyway, let's dive in and see what's in here. We don't have too much cutting to do on the front of this, since as you know, the delivery company did that for us already. But let's just have a little shop in here. So today's video, we're going to get a look at these cylinder heads. We're going to do a preliminary assessment, and I'm going to explain a little bit about how we're going to test these. So in fairness to Cole, I have to say this is well packaged. He has lots of cardboard protection all around the edges, and the cylinder heads are nicely in there together. So can't really cause that a fault of packaging. That is mishandling. One of the things to notice, Billy will give you a bit of a close-up here. You can clearly see this box got soaking wet at some stage. That's rust from a cylinder head, and that's only going to have happened because the box got wet. So, you know, drop the box in a puddle of water, then leave it soak overnight, and you know, you might as well have tissue paper around them as have a... Anyway, right, that's enough of me bitching about shipping companies. All right, so looking in here, what have we got? So we'll throw the packaging over there. Fantastic. So a set of Cooper S rockers. Let's start having a little bit of an inspection of these. Okay, so they are S rocker posts. They bear the part number 12A 210, I think. I'll try and see if I can get an angle of that for you. So the number is always stamped in down there on them. You probably won't be able to make it out there, but yeah, 12A 210. 12A 210. Now let's see, did the rockers themselves bear a part number? and they do. So they're very definitely a Cooper S item. AEA, I think. Wow, these are going to be early. So AEA, let's see if we can get a good one here. These these are a forged rocker, and the stamping in here is always hard to read. I'm thinking AEA 691. Okay, so that is interesting. They're very unusual style of rocker. Somebody has very definitely replaced the lock nuts with a different type of lock nut, just an AF standard type lock nut, which nothing really to worry about there. That's not how we're going to leave them, but the original very thin walled S shaft, we'll put a vernier on it there. Yeah, 2.2. We'll be putting one of my race rocker shafts in there, which are EN8, slightly higher carbon steel, but they also have nearly a 4mm wall on them, so a much stronger version of that. We'll replace that rocker shaft with that. How do the rockers feel actually? Actually not terribly bad. I mean, they definitely need rebushing, but yeah, they're not terribly bad. Okay. I wonder what miles and hours of use they've seen. Little bit nervous now. These are more rocker posts. There is another set of rockers in here. Bit unnerving when you see just rocker posts hanging around, but thankfully there is 4 of them. That's great. So none of those have gotten lost. And again, these are the same S casting, the 12A 210. So that's brilliant. Oh, interesting. These actually have been stamped. Somebody had these apart before. The actual top of these, let's see if I can get Billy an angle here. You can see number 4 is stamped into that one, number 2 in that one, number 3 in that one. So somebody put them together. That's our focus, like. Good. Alrighty. Okay. So yeah, somebody spent a bit of time stripping these. That's interesting. So we have 4 of those. Now this. Looks like a bit of a sorry state here. Okay, they're very much similar. They're a newer, I wonder if they have a different part number. Look, these are a newer type Cooper S rocker. They are an S rocker, but they're newer style. You can see the difference between these ones and these ones. These are an older, I think these are older, because you can see that the pad is much smaller on these, and that will be for lightness, because they were realizing that the more weight you had out here, the harder it was on the valve train. So they will have started to lighten down, and this will be in probably a much later developed rocker. What kind of year have we got on these? Okay, so AEG, yeah, so this is definitely a later model. Let's see if we got one here with a better. Okay, AEG 426, that's the one I know. A lot of the Cooper S rockers I've seen myself over the years, that's the part number they've had, that AEG 426 number. So that's, yeah, a later 1275S rocker. I presume they've been used on the 1071s as well. I've never actually built a 1071, so, or even a 970 actually, for that matter. Although I do have a 970 motor in a shed, but we haven't actually built it. Now, hopefully in this schmozzle there's going to be the other 4 rockers, although I'm not very hopeful. Oh, there is more stuff in here. Okay. What else have we got in here? Well, they're more modern. They're a set of valve springs. So Cole obviously had these. What have we got? So AEA 525. That is an S valve spring. What have we got here? No more rockers in there. Oh, okay. So that must have been. Oh, there's some valve springs, some top caps, and the rest of the not flattened collets. Okay, they're in there. What have we got here? Okay, so we've got some valve stem oil seals and some bronze valve guides. Oh, the mini spares ones, they're really good. I like those ones. They need reaming, but they're very good. So here's the meat and potatoes of it, the Cooper S cylinder heads. So very definitely Cooper S, AEG 163. So there's the casting number there, AEG 163, that's the S cast number. Stamped with a letter D. 3 stampings that were on these S cylinder heads. The letter S stamped in there the letter K stamped in there and the letter D stamped in there. There's a very good website called Mark 1 Performance, and a guy runs that by the name of Mark Foster, and he has phenomenal information about this. It actually slips my mind the differences. I think the K, the Cooper S casting with the K stamp on it, if I'm not completely mistaken, I think was used on things like the Austin 1100s or something like that. I think potentially, or something like that. But as far as I know, with the D and the S, that is very definitely a Cooper S casting. Well, it is a Cooper S casting. These old heads with the brass bungs in here, so those brass bungs were just driven in there, and you can actually see the sort of depression on them where they were bashed in with a hammer or a drift of some kind. And they are kind of like core plugs. So when the casting core would have needed to be taken out of this, the sand core needed to be taken out of it, in the early cylinder heads, they had holes in these to let the sand kind of come out of the mold. Obviously, as casting got better over the years, that wasn't needed, and they redesigned for the 12G 940, which is the later kind of slab head casting. That is it. I won't say it's better. I won't say that it's a better casting, but it's a more modern casting, and the casting technology was moving on. But on these early S heads, these brass bungs were in there. I'll have to chat with Cole. I would be inclined, if this is my own, I would be inclined to remove these and put in a tapped, I'll show you in fact the guide that I use for this. I normally use these guys, and they're actually designed specifically as a replacement for those. So they're just like a big M14 grub screw is what they are, and you can tap this M14 and replace them. So I'll chat with Cole and see what he thinks, but more than likely that's what we'll do there, because these have a handy knack of working out loose, and you know, when this head gets rebuilt and goes through heat cycles, you know, it could be a place where you get leakage. Water then goes in, runs down into the block. Okay, so that's that casting. There's more interesting stuff to tell you about this casting, but I'm just going to move on to this one here. Much cleaner, and you can clearly see that this casting obviously was better protected in the back there, away from the water. You can see this one got a bit of ingress of water. I know Cole cleaned these off with a wire brush just to do some preliminary checking, and yeah, there's a little dent there where it was obviously hammered, you know, knocked around a bit. That's a pity, but the surfaces look okay. And interesting, there's been work done to these cylinder heads. Okay, let's get this last one out of the box, and then we'll talk about some of the interesting stuff. Let's throw this box down here out of the way. Okay, so let's look at this one. Oh, it's so much cleaner. Yeah, you can see that this one didn't get nearly as much water on it. So it's still the same casting number, so it's still AEG 163. But it's a slightly different cast. Now, I'm telling you, these actually are from the exact same era, but this cylinder head has had work done on it. Yeah. So this cylinder head looks to have the more original style valve guides in it, and this one has different valve guides in it. Absolutely. Okay, that's very interesting. So let's look at the combustion chambers, and yeah, these clearly have had work done on them as well. Okay, so they are not the original shape or the original size. Wow, that's all very interesting. So let's look at this one again and see. So before I get into this and talk to you about some of the really interesting parts of this, I'm just going to say thank you very much to everybody who likes, shares and subscribes to the channel. I really do appreciate you all, and I know we've been a little bit sporadic with videos. We didn't get a video out this Sunday. I'll be completely plain and honest. I had a completely different video shot, and I actually tried to shoot it myself because our cameraman Billy, give it an L wave to the camera there, Billy. He's going to give the camera a shake right now. He's smiling. There you go. He's got a gimbal, so that doesn't work. I swear to God, he adamantly waved the camera, but the gimbal did a great job and you couldn't even tell. Our cameraman Billy wasn't well, and I said, look, I'll do the video on Saturday myself. I made a complete hames of it. overexposed it, terrible angles, the audio was awful, so we do need Billy here in the workshop, because otherwise we can make an absolute hash of the whole thing. We will have another video out this Sunday. I know this is coming out on a Wednesday, and we normally do on a Sunday, but look, it is what it is. I had to get this out there anyway to show you, because I was so excited about these cylinder heads when they arrived on Monday, so we got them out there and done. And the video that I did want to film for you will be coming out on Sunday. You'll have to tune in Sunday to see just what that is, because I'm making it up as I go along. No, I'm not. It'll be interesting to see. If you're new to the channel, you're most welcome. Thank you for coming and tuning in. I'm amazed every day there's new subscribers, and I do see you ticking in there, so thank you very much. If you're new to the channel, have a look around. We do lots of videos. We're either machining on our old British iron machines like our Bridgeport and our Colchesters, or else we're over here doing restoration work, fabrication work, or building race cars, or racing race cars for that matter as well. So petrol, oil and machines, that's us here. So yeah, if you are, have a little look around. If you're new, have a little look around, and if you like us, hit that subscribe. For all my regulars, don't forget to hit the like button. We gotta hit that like button, lads, so that the videos get out there and other people get a chance to see them and get that information out and about. Okay, so some interesting stuff going on here. So one of the very interesting parts on this cylinder head, I'm going to use my very near calipers here to point out what's going on. So if you look at these valve guides, what you're going to see is there's like a little boss actually built into the valve guide. And when we press these valve guides out, oh look, this one wants to come out itself. Oh, actually, right, tell you what, let's knock that one out because it wants to come out itself. Give me 2 seconds and I'll knock that valve guide out. So something interesting, when I put my finger on that valve guide, it just moved, and I just checked the rest of them. They're all actually in there nice and tight, but that one actually just moved, and that was sheer luck. What's actually happened is this valve guide picked up on the valve at some stage and has spun, and by doing that it is actually worn down. But it's actually perfect because I can illustrate to you what's going on. So these valve guides actually have a centering boss, and I'm trying to figure out, is that built into them or is it pressed on? I think it's pressed on. I think it's a metal ring that's pressed on. That's very interesting. I've never actually seen that before. I've heard about it, but I've never seen it. So that's a steel ring that's being pressed onto the guide at a certain height, and the idea is to center up the middle valve spring, because you've got an inner valve spring and an outer valve spring in these Cooper S cylinder heads. A normal valve guide would look like that, just plain with nothing on it. And then generally speaking, what would be used, I have them, I actually just happen to have a packet of them sitting here. These are the normal guys that would be used, and they just sit down over the valve guide, and you know, they would sit down over the valve guide, and that would be the ring that would center the valve spring. But this is a different version of that. Same kind of idea, but a different version. Interesting that that was loose in there, so obviously that guide picked up at some stage and turned around. I wonder what it measures out at. 1161. One of these, you know. Yeah, there you go. So they're measuring in at 1170, and this one's in at 1161. Actually, if I gave it a bit of a squeeze, 1159. That's interesting. Okay, so undersized valve guide or worn valve guide, one or the other, but certainly not a good fit. So we're going to have to check all of those valve guide bosses in there to make sure they're on size. I have a feeling they probably are. Just give it a quick check with the very nears here, but yeah, they're not looking too bad there. They're just on 11, so they're not too bad. Okay, let's keep going with our inspection of this head. So next thing to look at is in here in the combustion chambers, and these have definitely had work done to them. So that's not a standard combustion chamber. Something has gone on. Now, you might see this pitting here and think, oh, that's the casting mark, but I actually think this is more from corrosion or rust or something like that. Somebody has been in here and has worked on these combustion chambers. Also, they don't look like standard valve sizes, because if you look here, there's huge overlap between the inlet and the exhaust. I would hazard a guess the inlets are actually a standard size, and it has had oversized exhausts fitted. It very definitely has had port work. A lot of the valve guide boss has been removed. Lots of this short turn radius has been machined. The long turn has been blended as well. So these heads have definitely had port work done on them before. They've got a lot of corrosion. We're going to have to sit these in some rust dissolver, I think. So let's just quickly check these inlet valves to have an idea. Now this is just a rough look at them, but I'll be able to tell very quickly by the seat size. Yeah, so they're 35.5, so they are standard Cooper S size. But let's just have a quick rough look at these exhausts, because I don't think they are. So they should be 29.6 if they are standard exhaust, and they're actually much nearer 31. 30.8, on which I would say, you know, is just poor measurement on my behalf. I'd say it's actually 31mm exhausts. Yeah, I think a 31mm exhaust. Let's get a grab a 31mm exhaust valve and just see what that looks like sitting in there. This is a standard Cooper S exhaust valve. Yeah, that's sitting way low in that seat. So yeah, it definitely had a bigger exhaust in it. I'd say it had 31mm exhausts in there. So that's interesting. We're going to have a chat with the customer, because right now there is not enough meat there to put a hardened seat in. And I know the customer really wanted hardened seats. And on this particular head, there is not enough meat in there to put a hardened seat in. Now there is a method of fixing this. What we can do is we can lower the combustion chamber ever so slightly. We can put it in the bridge port, lower down the combustion chamber and re-blend it. And what that will do is it'll effectively drop us down slightly inside the cylinder head. That'll bring up fresh material, and we could then cut and put in a smaller exhaust valve. We could go back to the standard Cooper S 29.5 exhaust valve, which would give us the room to put a hardened seat in there and it hold in nice and tight, because we're still on that standard S inlet size. It, however, comes with consequences, or potential for consequences, because once we start machining down to these combustion chambers, we don't actually know 100% how thick they are. It's impossible for us to measure because it's a lost casting. It's the material's inside there. But there's a water jacket that runs here, and it runs really close to the inlet valve here and really close to the exhaust valve here. And in cylinder heads in the past before, when I've done this process, unfortunately I have reached that water jacket, or breached it should I say. So I'd be nervous about this. How much material has to come down? I think there's definitely going to have to be a 0.5 millimeter come out of those combustion chambers to actually get enough meat back to put an exhaust seat into. So I'm going to have a chat with the customer and see just how willing they are. We have 2 cylinder heads, so maybe what the customer might go with is we might do 1 cylinder head back to dead standard. So literally just refurbish it and keep it with standard seats in it. And then we could have a go at hardened seats in the 2nd cylinder head. That might be an option. Although, looking at this 2nd cylinder head, it has had just about as much work as the 1st cylinder head. I'll tell you what, it's definitely going to need valve guides anyway. Whoa, are they sloppy. I don't think I've seen an exhaust valve like that in a very long time. That's amazing how much wear is in those. Wowee. But we can see that those exhaust, they're definitely better, but they're still sitting low in them. So I think this has had an oversized exhaust as well. So definitely going to need to do some serious thinking about putting a hardened seat into these. Those combustion chambers have been worked and machined. I think for a casting that's probably, you know, early 1960s, these castings still are in really good condition. Let's have a little measure to see how much has been skimmed off them. That's going to be interesting to see. So, wow, okay, that's had at least 20 thousandths off it by the looks of that. Yeah. What's this one like? So 70 millimeters thereabouts is what I normally expect for these castings. 70, 71, depends, you know, I've seen them at 70 and 71. That one is measuring in there at 69 on the nose, and that one's coming in at 69.5. So 10 thousandths probably. That's very little. That's just a clean-up skim on that one. And this one, probably 20 thousandths come off it by the looks of that. Okay, not terrible. Not terrible. still plenty of meat left on there. Something that you have to be very, very careful with, because if these had been skimmed really heavily already, then there might have been lowering of the combustion chambers already, but I think these combustion chambers are going to be very close to standard height, which is good. That means that we have some room to play with. So the plan going forwards, lads, is we're going to contact the customer, see what he thinks. Hopefully we can get the go-ahead for him to do hardened valve seats in at least one of these. That means then we'll lower the combustion chambers, cut hardened valve seat reliefs, put hardened valve seats in, and then get a new set of valves in here. Before any of that work goes on, we're going to need to do some non-destructive testing on these cylinder heads. Now, the method that I use is Magnaflux, and it is a 3-stage process, and it uses what is called a chemical dye penetrant. Now, I have a cylinder head here that I did, I suppose, a little bit of a basic version of this on for you, that I'm going to bring over here and show you. So how this process works is, first of all, you use your first chemical to clean the cylinder head completely. Then you spray on a dye, which is this redness that you see here. Now, this cylinder head has been left for a very long period of time, so the dye has kind of seeped out and penetrated into the accelerator, but I'm going to explain in a minute what it is showing us. So you put the dye in, then you wipe the dye off completely, and you spray on a developer. And the developer is what you see, that whiteness there, that is the developer. The developer goes on and dries completely white, and the dye comes through the developer anywhere where there is a fault or a defect. Now, the reason we're seeing so much dye around here, this has just came from excess dye in the spark plug, so we don't worry about that at all over the period of time, because I've left this for over a week since I did the job on it, so we're not really worried about it. But the areas here around the exhaust valves, where you can see loads of dye around here, that has happened because the exhaust valve seats themselves are now loose in this cylinder head, and the dye capillary action in behind the exhaust valve seats. Then when we put the developer on, it came back out through, and we can clearly see there's one that's sealing reasonably well. You can see most of it is white, but then you've got this red area here around the side. That is a real good example of where the dye has capillaried back out again. It has also found a crack in the head here. There's a crack here and a crack here. Again, that's where the dye comes out and shows. In the not too distant future, when I have another head back from chemical cleaning, I'll actually show you this in action. I'll do one on the channel. I'll do the 3-stage process where we clean the head, put the dye on, and then develop it, and then kind of almost live watch and see how it happens. It takes about 3 hours to do this. Now, there is another Magnaflux process for checking cracks in cylinder heads like this, which is where the term originally came from, Magnaflux. It puts a magnetic flux into the cast iron, and you put powdered particles on the cylinder head, and it basically capillaries those in, and then you develop it. I have a very good contact with the Irish agent for all Magnaflux products, and we have tried all 3 processes that they provide, and this has always proven for me to be the most accurate and the most effective. Other methods out there I know do work, and some people love it because they've been doing it for years that way, and they find it just very repeatable and accurate. I've done it this way, and I've found this process to be very accurate for me. It is open to interpretation, as you can see here right now. I mean, if you interpreted this, 2 weeks after I developed it, you'd think the whole head was cracked, but it's not. There's just 1 or 2 little departments. It's about being able to be accurate and interpret it correctly. I've done some training with Magnaflux, and I've also watched a good few of their videos on how to do this, and I've also done it plenty of times in my career. So I'm very well able to interpret the results I get from it. You may not always have that effect yourself, so I do give this with a warning. It is for professional use only, and while you can buy this as a sort of a trainee or learning home mechanic, you may not get the accuracy that you might think. So if you're going to try it, certainly do by all means, but don't rely on it. I would still encourage that if you think you've got cracks in your cylinder head, or you think there might be cracks in your cylinder head, to get a professional to do it. The next step for these cylinder heads, before we're going to do the dye penetrant setup on them, and it's one of the reasons why I get such good results, is I'm going to chemically clean both of these cylinder heads. They're going to go and sit in a bath of chemicals, and that is going to take all the rust, all of the particles on it. Then we're going to put it through an electrolysis process, whereby we actually use a cathode and an anode to electronically remove any other debris from the inside of the cylinder heads and the outside of the cylinder heads. And when they come out of this, they will be bright bare cast iron. Once that's done, we'll wash them very thoroughly, clean them. We'll use the dye penetrants in both cylinder heads and make sure that there is no cracks, no porosity, no problems in the cylinder head. One of the places where I've had great result with this system over the magnetic fluxing system is for porosity. I've had cylinder heads show porous with this that didn't show porous with the magnetic fluxing system. I would probably say the magnetic fluxing is slightly better for finding cracks than this system, but this does everything better in my opinion. It covers the porosity and the cracks better, and it shows instability. For example, you know, we were talking about these bungs in the cylinder head, these brass bungs in the cylinder head, and whether they are good or not. I've seen situations where using the Magnaflux process, the dye penetrant, it has shown up that these aren't actually sealing completely, and you see the dye seeping back out again, and then when you go and hit them with a hammer, you go and bang them, you actually see where rust has built up on the edge of them, and they are going to fail. So, you know, as I said, it's a personal preference. It's the one I like to use, and I've had good results, so I rely on it, but not always the one out there. Hope you enjoyed, you know, unboxing these cylinder heads with me, having a look at them. Stick with the channel. We'll do as much information as I can on rebuilding these over the next couple of weeks and trying to get them back to coal. It won't be this week, it won't be in the next video, and it won't be in the video after because we've got a live, but the video after that more than likely will be the next step on these cylinder heads, because they'll have come back from chemical cleaning and we'll actually be ready to start doing some machining on them. So thank you very much, and see you guys on the next one.